Hello everyone, this is Civ Extraordinaire, and I am doing something different today because I am doing a video on a tier list, because I don't usually do tier lists, so it's definitely something out of the ordinary, you could say. But tier lists have kind of been a trendy thing in 2020, so I guess I wanted to do a quick callback. This isn't Thursday, so no throwback Thursdays, but I just wanted to spice things up a bit since I've been doing live streams a bit this past week. And Imperator Rome, so just wanted to do something unique and really add some flavor to the channel. So I know a lot of people, just to get onto the tier list, I know a lot of people have made their own personal tier lists, and I'm just here to throw down the gauntlet and kind of expand upon that by adding my own tier list. So obviously you have God the weak in terms of strength and whatever, so that's just how it works. But God obviously being the strongest, weak being very pitiful. There are a few weak civs, I think, but this is definitely better than quantifying civs by like a certain number or something. This is just more relative, so you can approximate based on that. But this is by no means an objective tier list. This is very subjective, especially since I've only played some of these civs once, so bear that in mind. Anyway, let's get on to the ranking, because first of all, I guess we can start with Freddy. I think he would be a semi-god just because of his production and the Hanses. You can really theme tons of production, so he's very good at a generalist victory, and then his city-state production and bonus ability helps a bit too, just for that that extra district as well to kind of incentivize theming aqueducts along with Hanses and whatnot. The Netherlands, I actually like the Netherlands quite a bit. I think they're above average. Wilhelmina's ability, I kind of explained it in my top 3 favorite civilizations. Her ability is a bit lackluster, so like +1 and +1 culture and loyalty to domestic cities. Not really anything to gawk over, but I think Alexander is definitely a semi-god. He gets some amazing abilities. I don't think he's absolutely broken, but he can completely change the game. And I should probably mention that I am ranking all of these civs, I think, with all of the updates in mind. So just take that into account. Now, I won't be ranking them with game modes considered, but I will be ranking them with all the districts. So obviously, I wouldn't be considering Poland with its relics, which make it reasonably stronger, but I would be considering Pachacuti with his preserves. Speaking of which, I think I will move him to God tier, just because his ability Mita, which allows him to work mountains, in conjunction with preserves, is absolutely broken. It needs to be patched out immediately. Alright, I haven't really done any of the weaker civs, but I guess Kublai China. These guys are wearing the same robe, so it's kind of hard to distinguish. But Kublai China, I will put average, maybe, and then Kublai Mongolia, above average. Mongolian Kublai is just a lot better because he has better synergy with trade routes. And then China Kublai, there is some synergy with the economic policy slot and extra builders, but he is fun to play, China Kublai, but Mongolian Kublai kind of blows him out of the water just with how fast he can get Eurekas and inspirations. So I think Magnificent Catherine, since we're on alternate leaders, maybe above average. That might be a bit of a controversial opinion, but I really love her chateaus and the extra culture she can get from them. They're pretty insane. But if you didn't know, you can basically put theater squares next to luxuries and get even more culture. So she kind of has an unorthodox playstyle that some people take some used to getting to, or take some time to get used to. I think Coupe is also God just because of how broken preserves are. So he is pretty damn good. But I would say Teddy, just having played him, he might be semi-god because the preserves, I just did a live stream with him. I'm recording this on Monday. I will upload it on Saturday, but his preserves in particular are very, very strong. His counterpart, Rough Rider, he doesn't really get too much synergy with preserves, I don't think. So where is he? Here. I'll put him at strong. His Diplo focus is pretty good, and he can also go for early rushes. So strong or above average, I'm not too sure. Just take some thinking. You know what? I think I might put him above average. You know what? I'll keep him in strong. That's borderline though. Um, so yeah. Again, I think we have on the topic of alternate leaders, probably a good idea to go with Eleanor. Eleanor of England is definitely below average in my opinion. Maybe even weak. And then Eleanor with France, I think is basically average. You kind of have to wait a bit before her abilities kick in, so she is very weak starting off. Then we have Batrieu. She is definitely strong. I don't know if she's semi-god. Maybe. This is a tough one, like with Teddy. Oh, I think I'll put her in strong. She is very, very powerful. Or Vietnam is very, very powerful with her, just because of the Tan and the culture bonus. So they can really pump out tourism later on with flights. And then that extra culture, you can get up to like 12, I think, per adjacent district. So pretty damn ridiculous. I think the Maya I will put in below average just because of how dependent they are on their start locations. So they can be crippling if you get a really bad desert start or a tundra start. They're probably one of the pickiest civs when it comes to start locations. And maybe Babylon, definitely semi-god with how much you can exploit his tech boost because he does get free Eurekas or free techs from Eurekas. And I don't think he's god. He might have had some changes recently. I'm not too sure. But again, borderline god, semi-god. He is very, very powerful. Okay, maybe Robert the Bruce. I think I'll put him above average. When you theme his golf courses and get some amenities, especially since he got a recent buff, I think one of the New Frontier Pass patches, one of the free patches, he can be pretty good. So I think Spain is a bit underrated, though. I would put him in average. I don't think you need... People say that he's pretty reliant on a religion, but aside from that, his missions by themselves can be pretty good when you're going to foreign continents. So I think he can vary between below average and above average depending on when you get a religion. But in general, I would put him at average, which may be another controversial opinion. Another easy one, though, would be John Curtin because he is just probably the best, one of the best leaders in the game, not factoring preserves in just because of his appeal. Actually, maybe that would buff him further. I haven't tried out John Curtin with preserves. But since his campuses and theater squares really get a bonus from appeal, preserves probably function very well with him. Kind of similar to the Inca. Let me see. Georgia. Ooh, Georgia. I love Georgia, but they're definitely below average just because of their kind of inconsistent bonuses. I mean, they got a buff in Gathering Storm, but they are one of the weaker civs. Speaking of rise and fall civs, though, the Mapuche, where are they? Probably moused over them. Here you are, Ice Age Baby, my favorite. I would actually put him above average just because of how good the Kema Mules can be. By themselves, if you were playing a vanilla civ with Kema Mules and that mountain bias, you could still get some insane flight yields from flight. And the initial culture output with the Mapuche can get pretty insane. So I think he's definitely slept on, so to say. But I think I've done all the South American civs. Oh, I haven't done Brazil. I take that back. I would put Brazil in strong, maybe semi-god. Again, borderline. Just because of his rainforests and how you can quickly theme them to get like +6 production due to adjacency and policy card shenanigans. So, kind of similar to Russia. Maybe a bit similar to Russia. I think I might put him and Russia with Piotr in semi-god. They actually function fairly similarly just because they theme around tundra and jungle. And they both like great people too because of Peter's Lavra and then they're both Peter. And then Pedro's his personal leader ability. All right, Rome. I think Rome is above average, maybe borderline strong. I played with Rome a bit, and I think they've definitely kind of seen a power creep with Babylon, the Inca, and some of the other later civs added. So I hope they get a rework in April, at least just some more bonuses. Their baths, however, are very strong and kind of allow them to settle off the grid and in atypical locations. but I wouldn't put them in strong in the same league as Batriu and Theodore. Mansa Musa, ooh, you are a tricky one. I think I might put him in strong, again, borderline, just because of how good his gold is, and he can basically buy anything. Again, he is a bit start dependent, but he has a bit of a weaker start, but I think he has a really strong potential late game, so a bit borderline between above average. But speaking of African civs, maybe Nubia. I think they could be semi-god just because of how strong their early Pitati rush is. You can conquer like half of the continent with that insane unit, which has really good damage. And I think they also move faster, not too sure. And then their pyramids are significantly underrated because you can do a bit of city planning with them. The only problem is that you start near desert, but that can be remedied with the pyramids just a little bit. But I wouldn't put them in god, I'd say semi-god. Japan, however, I think maybe god. I mean, they're theming just with how crazy you can get with their district placement and everything. It is just beyond insane. It's just, especially with doubling abilities, yields with culture and science, and then on top of that, their unique building. It's just mind-blowing. So the samurai, I guess, is their only kind of bad part, but overall, they're a very strong civ. I think Egypt, on the other hand, is kind of slept on too. They are average. People put them below average in like D tier too. I disagree because floods, especially when you go up to like, I know not everyone does this, but when you put it on to like level 4 for disaster settings, they can absolutely get insane food and production early on due to some of the flooding. And because they're immune to floods, both in population loss and I think district pillaging, they can just rely on floods to carry them through a lot of the early game and pump those settlers out. So I would say average, maybe above average if you get some really good rivers. Again, it can be a bit start dependent. Okay. Who do I do next? Maybe Scythia. I think she's semi-god. I have not played her in a long, long time. But she can print out Shaka horse archers at an insane rate. She was one of the most busted vanilla civs. And to this day, she continues on to be a very slept-on civ. People complain about her Kurgan, but it's fine considering that she gets, like, I think 2 cavalry units just automatically whenever she makes another cavalry unit. So she gets a total of 2 cavalry units. So, again, amazing for rushes. And then the Shaka horse archer is a good unit in of itself. Okay. I think Basile, since we kind of are touching on domination, he is definitely god tier just because of how much his bonuses stack. Again, he's my least favorite leader, but I can't deny that he has some very consistent bonuses. I played him on a snowflake map, but that was really kind of disadvantageous to him. So it kind of depends on what map you play with. Chandra Gupta, I would say he's above average. He's kind of held back by the Indian civilization ability, Dharma, which is kind of crappy. And he doesn't have any bonuses himself to faith or religion, so he doesn't really need a great profit, but it would help if he had some kind of incentivization to going for a religion in his ability. I would say his Varu Rush puts him above average, and then I would say Gandhi, possibly below average, just because of the Stepwell and Dharma, not too strong. His ability is okay, but I mean, it's not really vaulting him over Genghis or Spain or Egypt for that matter. Okay, he's kind of below at the bottom of the pack. Genghis, I would say strong. He is also kind of slept on. A lot of these civs are slept on, but Genghis and some of the rise and fall civilizations are pretty good if you can use them right or correctly. His bonus, I noticed it in my Spain Let's Play, which was a few months ago, can really stack just with his trading post and his recon. So I would not underrate him. He can be very, very consistent if you know when to send trade routes. Okay. Sweden, Schweiden, I would say semi-god. Their theming bonus is amazing, and so is their bibliothèque. I would say also their open air museum is pretty good. They were the first civ I won a victory with in Civ 6. So it wasn't that hard either. But they can be pretty fun to play with. They are definitely underrated. Though I do not like Christina. That's probably a good topic for another video, though. I think we've ranked like half of the civs, so not too bad. My voice is already kind of shot because I did a stream earlier today, but I have to continue on for the people. I would say Pericles, he is strong. He's definitely like B+, maybe A, but he's not like God tier. He was pretty strong in vanilla, but because he doesn't really get any bonuses to tourism, it's just culture. He's not godly, though the Acropolis and his easy theming and then the culture for city-states, while very basic, can be very, very potent. I think Korea is also pretty good. Maybe she's semi-god, strong, borderline. I think there's been a lot of power creep with some of the vanilla civs, and she's just not holding up as well, just because the Seiwan, well, it's a good +4 bonus. I don't know how good it is when you kind of factor in the preserve and kind of the districts that are being added, and how space is a lot more precious. You can't always put Seiwans kind of wherever and just build farms around them now. I think there's a bit of competition, and space has become a lot more valuable. So I think Korea is definitely one of the civs that needs an update. She's very basic, and Sundog, not sure how you pronounce her name in Korean with the official syntax or whatever, but not a fan of her pick. I would have preferred Sejan, but I mean, she's okay. Very basic abilities, though, unfortunately. Persia, I think, is very underrated because he has a very nice early rush he can go for, and then the Pasargadae, or the Paradisa, very consistently theme well with districts and that extra culture, and I think tourism with flight can be very potent. All right, Gilgabra, one of my favorite AIs. I would say he is strong, above average, borderline. His war carts can be extremely strong, very deadly. Not only for clearing out tribal villages, but for an early rush. Kind of funnily enough, if you play him aggressively, I think you're benefiting a bit more from his abilities. And then the Ziggurat can also be a good source of early science. So I haven't really played the Ottomans too much. I guess I would put them at strong, maybe above average. This is a tough one. The Janissary can be a bit tricky to use. I mean, you're probably going to conquer some cities by that point, so you're just not really going to be pumping out Janissaries from your main cities. I guess I put it maybe above average. They are still pretty good. Their unique governor is pretty good too, so I think I might put them at strong. Okay. You know what? The Congo are also kind of slept on too. I mean, their relics, I'm not counting secret societies, anti-heroes, and legends, but their relics can be pretty consistent. You get them later on, but I would say they are pretty strong. They're not strong as in like A or B+, but I'd say they're about a B-. Maybe a average, kind of borderline, but Speaking of average, though, Teowarman, I would say he can be either like super strong or he can be pretty weak, depending on when you get Martyr and whatnot, though he is probably one of the most slept on civs, just because of how good his Martyr ability is. Basically, you have players at a choke point because you can go for culture or religious victories, and if a player does not want to kill your apostles, you can go ahead and then convert their cities, so you kind of have them really at the end of your mercy, or you have them at your mercy, so to say. But they can really be strong. But they kind of need good rivers for that extra food and to kind of get a bigger population to exert loyalty pressure and whatnot. So I guess I would say average. They can be a bit variable. Another Southeast Asian civ is Gitarja. Maybe I would say she is strong. She was nerfed a bit, I think in Rise and Fall, not too sure, with her coastal bonuses, but the Kampung are very, very good. One of the best coastal improvements in the game. Probably even better than the Polder. And her ability, I think it's called Great Nusantara, is good for an early religion, and that really helps with Indonesia and kind of faith buying things. So at least it incentivizes you to go for holy sites. I would say the Gaul, these are like my favorite civ, I think at the moment, tied with America. They are probably strong. Definitely not semi-god, but I think they're above average just because of how good their Oppidum is and that really early production. Also, the Geistate are very, very good early units, and you can keep them for much longer, which means you can spend your production on different things and then sack them in the medieval era for something else. But just because they come in the ancient era and they're so potent. And the Oppidum, I think they also get a flanking bonus. All in all, the Gaul are very strong. Also, they have a culture bonus for pumping out units, so an early rush as the Gaul is not a bad idea. Okay, who is next? Norway? I would say Norway is actually pretty strong. Maybe semi-god just because of his raid ability, and I think there's even a card that doubles your raid bonuses or bumps them up by 50%. So Norway can really push through. Maybe not on a Pangea maps as much, where he may be above average, but on continents and especially island plates, he is easily able to rove around and get tons of science and culture from plundering different players' settlements. So maybe he has a bit of a weaker start, I guess, but in the medieval era, when you get his stave church, which gives bonuses to coastal tiles and resources, and then you get his boats and berserkers up, you can really do some damage and push yourself ahead at the other player's expense. So I don't know why there are two Eleanors here. I'll just kind of ignore that. But I don't know what's happening here. Maybe we can go to China next. He is maybe strong. I don't know. That early Wonder Rush is very, very potent, especially with Mandate of Heaven isn't too good, but I guess it helps a little bit with your science. Though I would say it'd be a bit better if it was like 60% instead of 50%. But his early potential to rush wonders, it can be a bit situational depending on where you start, but with all of the ancient and classical wonders kind of being added to the game, he's only gotten stronger with the New Frontier Pass and Gathering Storm. So I guess, as you say, in like Total War, China grows stronger. I'm not too sure. That was kind of cringy, but I'm not too sure the quote. But he has a lot of potential, especially if you know how to play him right. He is probably a higher learning skill civ, kind of like, I guess, Vietnam and the Maori to an extent. But when you play him right, he can be very, very strong. Okay, I guess Catherine de Medici would be average. I mean, I don't think her abilities work too well in conjunction. I mean, you can steal great works and whatnot kind of early on, but the basic wonder ability for wonder production for France is not too good. And yeah, just not a big fan of Catherine's basic Black Queen form. Kind of sounds like I'm talking about Pokemon or some kind of trading card game, but whatever. I would say Gorgo is above average. I haven't played again with her too much. I don't really play domination civs that much, so you can definitely take my opinions on them with a grain of salt. But the hoplites in conjunction with, I think, culture from killing units is super powerful. And I think the Acropolis also kind of funnels into a stronger culture victory. So the Acropolis doesn't synergize, I don't think, with her as well as it does Pericles, but again, hoplites and that killing bonus is very powerful. I think Ethiopia, one of the other New Frontier passives, is strong. Maybe not semi-god, again, borderline. But, again, I'm not counting secret societies in, so he can vary a bit with his starting location like a lot of the other New Frontier passives. But I would say he is definitely an A to A plus tier civilization. Montezuma, I would also say, is an A to A plus tier civilization just because of his really underrated ability to steal builders by converting other players' warriors or military units once you defeat them with his Eagle Warriors. So potential for a very early rush, and then he can also always rush districts, and that is very strong for a science victory. So if you want to conquer a nearby player in the ancient era and then settle down, that is a perfectly valid strategy, and because of that, he is very, very powerful. All right, I would say Simone Boulevard, he has been nerfed a bit. So I'm not too sure. Maybe semi-god. Haven't, again, played too much with him. But the haciendas are fairly potent, although they come much later. Probably one of the latest improvements. But he is pretty good. He's definitely not god tier, though, especially when he first premiered. I would say Queen Victoria is above average, not strong, but her Workshop of the World ability, though it comes in late, she performs her role much, much better than Eleanor. And I think for that, she is above average. Also, she is very good at domination, especially on coastal heavy maps like island plates. So for that reason, I don't play her too much, but she is very good. Also because of the Royal Navy Dockyard. I think it grants a free unit when you are on another continent. So you can just really pump out units. And then that also helps pay for units as well. So because of that +2 gold on foreign continents. All right, I would say Matthias Corvinos, the Raven King of Hungary, one of my more favorite leaders in terms of his voice actor and his animation. Definitely S tier in that department, though he is also fairly strong. He's a military, kind of generalist civilization, though he's kind of underrated for science and cultural victories, just because of the Pearl of the Danube ability, which grants extra production if a district is across the river from a city, or from the city center. So I would say he is strong, but he's not semi-god. I think they nerfed him just a bit. If we were talking about right as Gathering Storm released, he would maybe be semi-god. But I'd say he's fine right there. Okay, we have Saladin, Dido, Kree, or Poundmaker, and then Wilfried, and then Shaka, and finally Jadwiga. Who do I want to do? And then, of course, we have this filler. I don't know what this is. I wouldn't say any of these civs are particularly weak, although maybe Canada would be weak. He still needs some improvements, I think. Maybe he's the only weak civ I consider. I don't know. Maybe Eleanor would also be weak. Eleanor of England. Maybe she's also weak. I don't know. I really hate her bonuses, and it's just really bad. She's kind of she's a train wreck to play with. I'll just say that. I know some people like to play her and say she's underrated, but she is nowhere near as good as her French counterparts, and I'm not going to dwell on that too much. Wilfried himself, his bonuses come in a bit too late, and I don't think they specifically tie in Moto Tundra outside of the hockey rink. If he got some kind of railway hotel or whatever, that would be a lot better, but it's kind of disappointing. He's definitely improved. Maybe as Gathering Storm released, kind of like with Matthias, he would be below weak. He'd be like pathetic. I think he can be a bit detrimental to play, but he is best suited for diplomatic victories, so that's just how you know it's probably a bad civ. Though Matthias is pretty good for diplomatic, and he is pretty strong, so is Rough Rider Teddy, so I take that back. Jadwiga, I would say she is average. Winged Hussars are very strong, though they come in medieval, so it's a bit of a later push. The Sukeniche is fine, and then the Relics ability can be a bit dependent, yet Teo Armin is a bit more consistent than her, but I don't know. Yeah. She is a lot. I'd say she's strong with secret societies and heroes and legends, just because of how much they kind of cater to her and her relic playstyle. But since we're not factoring those in, I'd say she's just about average. Dido, I would say, is also average, though she is very strong with her settler spam. And she can go for a domination victory, though she is a bit coast dependent. And that's probably all I'll say about her. Her early settler production can be very, very powerful. You just have to kind of focus on that. And then I would say Poundmaker might be above average, just a little bit because of his Mega Wops and kind of how you can increase their yields and whatnot. So he might be a bit worse with the Preserve just because he likes to improve a lot of things. But I would say he can be strong if you have the right resources. I would also say Saladin is above average. He's very underrated. He has the Madrasa, and then he has that bonus towards holy sites or holy buildings, like the pagoda or the fire temple being in your holy site, and that's like plus 10% culture and plus 10% science to the city, and that's pretty good, along with being the last person to get a prophet, though that is kind of a double-edged sword because you don't really want to wait for a prophet too much as Saladin, so you kind of want to build those holy sites up early. I guess that's all I'll say about him. Finally, the last person we have here is Shaka. He has seen some changes, but his abilities, I think, come in a bit late. I would put him above average. I haven't played too much with him in a long time, so I could be wrong on this. But maybe borderline strong, above average, somewhere in between there. But I think this is everyone for the tier list. So if you guys did like this, please let me know in the comments below or by leaving a like. Thank you guys so much for watching, and this has been my tier list. I am completely parched and my voice is shot, so I will be wrapping this up here without any further commentary. But again, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of the week. All right, this has been Civ Extraordinaire, and I love you guys. Thanks.